if I wanted to get a slightly more interesting look to these particles, I could perhaps start by slowing down the particle speed. If I double-click on the Emit from Surface compound, I'll lower the particle speed by about half, just a little over half, let's say 2.2. So we get a lower height to our flame, which looks pretty good. And now if I wanted to break up this line right here, I could use a function curve node to amplify the changes in my min and max value over time. If I was to pull in a function curve, if I look under my filter for Fcurve, it's a basic math node, we'll bring that in and output our Turbulize by range to the input of the function curve and output the function curve into the particle age limit. We end up having a pretty horrible look here, but that's fine. I'm just going to take the beginning of the function curve and I'm going to lower the range like so. That might be a little low, so I'll raise this value a little bit more. So you actually notice what we've got here is that rather than having a solid line across the bottom, we're actually breaking that line up and creating gaps in our particles. And of course, if I want to reduce the number of gaps, I can always bring the beginning function curve closer and closer and closer to 0 or to a positive number. So as long as I make this start value on the function curve a little less than 0, I can start to build in a little gap there. I'm also going to take the end range and I'm going to raise it up a little higher just so the particles can live a little longer. Maybe I'll take that up to about 80%. And I'll also add in some more filler here by increasing the function curve range early on so that we don't stay around these 0 values or very close to 0 values. If I shift E to edit key, I'll middle click and drop in a keyframe so that after birth we get these gaps, but right away we fill them in. So you can see the relationship between lowering, getting more spacing between our gaps, and raising the value of the function curve. We can really start to fill in those values. As you've decreased the age and ramped up the age limit by using a function curve on our Turbulize, we may need to increase the max value if we want our particle flame to live a little longer. So if I wanted to get a bit more height out of this, I could increase the max age limit to say a value of about 1.3. And again, I can work the compound itself, the function curve attribute, to ramp those values up a little more. There we go. Let's take that down a little bit more, maybe to 1.2 or 1.1. Okay, so we're getting a more interesting look. Now is the time to go in and start to change the movement of the particles. You'll notice that all the particles are essentially just moving up along their local y vector, which is their initial direction vector. If I double-click on the Emit from Surface compound, they're using the Emit location normal as their directional vector. I'm also going to make a couple changes at this point. Eventually, when we work with the particles, we're going to need the particles to be represented as an actual shape rather than a center point in space. We need a very small size so we don't lose any detail. So I'll use a spherical 3D shape, which in this case is very large, and I'll reduce the size to something small. And I might want to even go a little smaller than that, just so I can still make out the patterns. That's what's really important here. We're going to really let the particle volume shaders take care of the shading or the filling of the volume. Okay, so with the age limit set now and the speed working as we intend, let's move on.